Plagiarism in the PortaPotty. Sometimes a mountain is just a mountain with a porta-potty on it. For a good time call, some had paid little attention to the recessive gene, calmly to the suggestion that we, too, as humans, had to suffer through regurgitation. And though while it was not part of the plan, the after effects can still be witnessed in the porta-potty through the regurgitation of thought, along with urine and feces, vomit and semen, and other bodily fluids necessary to human transgression. And though I am remiss to avoid the writings on the static wall, it is very rare my cognitive dissonance arrive at the same conclusion suggested by the author in the PortaPotty. Thanks, Tom, I usually assure myself, whatever the creature suffers may be on the wall. The only solution is selfless logic in the circumstance of time. It's often conventional, the language, a circle jerking of creepers, whom may also assert the advantage that the pen is mighty, though sometimes personal, as the writings sometimes point to home. Covington written in a porta-john in Las Vegas with a phone number and other important details, an experiment gone wrong by the human struggling in recession. To anyone that does not know what plagiarism is, may look in a bathroom with writing on the wall and feel the gaunt spirit of the dissonance, then compare the feeling to the news media all reporting on the same issue. Plagiarism in the PortaPotty is no small issue, as it is often plagiaric in personal information. Blood to a piranha, also a recessive issue. Express logic is of concern, for literative espionage is at play, and an attack on transliteration is also currently targeting victims and transients. What does go in does not come out the same, newly pollinated with words of explicit hate, transporting the reader into the author's domain, who put very careful thought in the prose written. The author not knowing the rubric or understanding under attack, a failure in planning, but most plans fail without the inclusion of the enemy. The PortaPotty author writes to amuse himself. Sometimes a porta-potty is just a porta-potty after all, lessening the imagination of the originator. The author has excellent choice of utensil and penmanship. However, I blame second alto. With further acceptance of the words on the walls come the surge of want to use the bathroom. Sometimes you really gotta go. The writing becomes sacred in a sacred place, almost expected and cliche, but never acceptable. It becomes clear the original plan of the porta-potty, a product of highly engineered specification, usually lacking ventilation, abused by the harmful imaginations of others, that there may be less the thought, the abuse endured by the many that maintain the function of such a beautiful piece of engineering. Creature is gained by the exploit that a porta-potty is of a universal right and luxury, tolerance peaks, and not even the animals speak of what is endured by the masses. But to write in a porta-potty or any restroom is to be considered a literary agent in espionage, and to threaten my loved ones of home in Covington is also to be working against the best interests of Las Vegas, and to be on the wrong side of Leeds law is to be a great artist, and ample reason or gratitude is amiss in the leverage of man. In other words, don't do it. What I gather from the time 2021, and how gravity has changed. The express law of the ballpoint pen becomes functional and carries the artist away in many ways. To see failure scratching at the wall, the words adhere to no method and sticks not to medium. If I were to buy a porta-potty for my personal use, the projections of my writings would be an extension from my craft equally as painful. I would experiment with the medium, in circumstance, and imagine a grocery list. Eggs, bread, bacon, milk, orange juice, toilet paper. Though many may retch at the idea of a grocery list in a porta-john, I'm relieved of my humor, this side up. And instead, I prosper from my innate and inductive style that such a spec may be required loss from institutionalization, and I make it my priority to avoid the institutionalized church and search for a more inclusive and consensual environment. Whatever is regurgitated in a porta-potty and left there by security is abuse. In the absence of logic, and Vygotsky remains the shell of a defeated man. What do you want me to do about it? Put a camera in the bathroom? By then my logic braces, and I'm quick not to say a word, and instead allow for the correction of not the suggestion, but by the man leading his question with another question. In formative sequence, I'm tempted to place this essay in the porta-potties, but a mountain is just a mountain with a porta-potty on top. I instead yield to learn from the professionals and offer the essay to the maintainers, only in my hopes to learn something new. As I become intrinsic in the holy sanctuary of the bathroom, I'm reminded of the Mayans and their difficult choice to add plumbing during a time when defense is at the forte. The only way to maintain defense was to go down into the depths of their means. And it was around the classical era of their understanding that the Mayans did dig. No amount of felt hostility and intention could rob from such a miraculous achievement. And the difference was refreshing, despite the pollination of porta-potties exploited may ever offer. The moment Covington was written on the walls, jazz had died. An epiphany I had was simply to insult the writings on the walls, but I have better notions to instead meet my heroes and wonder, the plans enduring such as a dud on the wall to root out the culprit. But what inspires many may have ill effect on others. I yielded my understanding to find the crux words, that I do not believe in sacrifice and warrant not one more thought. The solution comes from administration, and the words discovered are often found before peeping Tom is drawn on the wall. Describing the situation, I shall not prompt, but constant use of the whiteout or spray paint is in order until due process of elimination. Paint the walls black until the sternest precipitates like a giant earthworm, to the sound of the earth vibrating. I waste no more thought on the red herring wannabes, and instead rejoice among the comfort of many calluses and words absent from my thinking in my effort to preserve what is really important in life, my retaining of spec from institutionalization, and all my teachers I now call friend. What is limiting in the situation paves way in the form of the Homeric tradition. Some doors are not meant to be opened. I have penned many words. The porta-potty author learns nothing from his effect that any critic may be suggestive, while the potty author whittles away in thought through explicit interpretations of his craft, also hinting to his and her next fix of gaunt waste. Only so much may be preserved in the writ of genes. The mutation endured by RNA remains recessive in effort, clogged by altruistic burden of gaunt pleasure. People stop talking about the script after a while. What remains is a mutant full of expectation. Life is vivid, the universe is grand. Put me anywhere in space, I end up home. The porta-potty author ends up with his work unfinished. How many chapters in a porta-potty and how to turn the page slowly, most go to the same thought. In my attempts to remain amicable and confronting the issue of conditioning that I associate on a daily basis, the relief of comfort in dissonant writings, I simply do not mess with it. Instead, remember, plagiarism in the porta-potty, burden of proof is avoided, and cackles evolve, that I am much more clever than you in your product, Tom. What remains explicit is that you can never tell what you walked into until you prepare to relieve yourself. Unbuckling your belt is like putting on the seatbelt. By that time, the car is out of the driveway, and while autonomous, the writings become much later in a somewhat complex process we do every day. And even while I sit, every angle is covered. Tom thought of everything, second alto. Alleviating the situation is simply to check the grammar. No, it's too much information and domain in the author. Alleviating the situation is then to practice with the autonomous region of the brain that turns the writing into squiggles and make blueberry the situation. Yep, that's it. At will. Reckless incantation in the rose, ad nauseum in layman's terms. Anyway, what does the porta-potty mean for the news media? I made no special mention of the U.S. General on the radio, NPR, mentioning the correlation of a small population of listeners to masturbating ants. Soldier ants lop off the heads of masturbating ants to instead live in the masturbator's haven or dwelling. But there may be a lack of correlation between recreation and the scrawlings on the porta-potty. lack of information, and when there is no enemy, an enemy is made in some fashion. Plagiarism in the PortaPotty is an essay written by Kavika Harper. Copyright A Sailor's Journey, 2019.